In this unit, I'm going to show you how to complete a title and complete all the deal documents. Let's start making some money, okay? We're going to do a deal. If you're buying a vehicle from a dealer auction, you're going to stand in line and the titling clerk will tell you to sign here, and they'll show you exactly how to complete a title as a licensed motor vehicle dealer, because they complete several thousands of titles every week at the dealer auction. So what I want to do is do a little bit different of a scenario, and I want to show you exactly how to buy a vehicle from an individual and then sell the vehicle to another individual, because I think many times, it's just going to be you and one customer doing an actual deal. So your customer is going to expect you to know how to complete the title and complete all the other paperwork correctly. So we're going to go through a scenario and we're going to buy a vehicle from an individual and we're going to bring that vehicle back to our location and sell it to another individual. That way you'll have complete oversight over the buy and you'll have complete oversight over the sell. So to begin this, we need to remember and we need to memorize that there are 4 parts to most transactions. We can't make any money with a vehicle until we buy a vehicle to resell. So we're going to need to buy a vehicle to resell. We'll bring the vehicle back to our lot. We'll sell the vehicle and collect sales tax. Then we're going to use the Alabama title system, and I'll show you that here in just a few moments, to order the customer's new title and then place a temporary permit on the back of the vehicle sold. Once again, 4 parts to most transactions. We're going to buy a vehicle to resell. We're going to sell the vehicle and collect sales tax. Then visit the Alabama title system to order the customer's title. And finally, we're going to place a temporary permit on the vehicle after it has been sold. Here you see an Alabama certificate of title. Let's go through a scenario where we're going to buy a vehicle from an individual and we're going to bring it back and sell it on the lot. The state of Alabama requires every person that buys a vehicle to pay the motor vehicle sales tax when they purchase that vehicle. I want to repeat that. The state requires every person that's purchasing a motor vehicle to pay sales tax at the time of the vehicle acquisition, unless you have a dealer's license. When you get your Alabama dealer's license, the state allows you to buy a vehicle and then turn around and resell it for profit without paying sales tax. The only party that can legally buy a vehicle and resell it without paying sales tax is going to be you, the licensed motor vehicle dealer. Unfortunately, there are a lot of persons out there that want to buy and sell vehicles, but they don't want to go through the legal steps that you're going through to get a legal dealer's license. And they just want to buy vehicles and then illegally sell them without a dealer's license. So what they're going to do, they're going to buy a vehicle from someone. They'll ask that person selling the vehicle to just sign and print their name on the back of the title. And then they will leave all the purchaser's information blank, like what you see right here. I want to show you this title so you'll always be able to identify this illegal title, because you can see at the very top right of this title, the person trying to sell you this vehicle has asked the previous owner just to leave all the purchaser's information blank, and they've asked the previous owner to sign and print their own name on the back, and they have illegally left all the purchaser's information open or blank. So we refer to this as a skipped title or an open title, because this person has skipped the payment of sales tax. They have illegally skipped the payment of sales tax. Remember, the only person that can skip the payment of sales tax is going to be a licensed motor vehicle dealer. So I want to magnify this title so you'll definitely be able to identify these illegal titles. See where all that purchaser's information has been left blank, but the person trying to sell you this vehicle has just asked the previous owner to sign and print their name. So how do you avoid coming into possession of one of these blank titles when you're buying a vehicle from an individual? It's very important to ask that individual, is the title in your name? So if you have found a vehicle that you want to purchase, say for example on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, or maybe somebody drives on your lot wanting to sell a vehicle, once again, you'll ask that customer, is the title in your name? When you ask that customer and the customer says, yes, the title's in my name, I've got it right here, that is excellent. That's what you're going to be looking for. And so you should go ahead and hopefully make that buy. But more often than not, when you ask an individual if the title's in their name, they might say something like, well, no, I bought this car from my neighbor a couple months ago. He signed the back of it, and you can just come on over here and buy it from me. That's the illegal title that I just showed you a few moments ago. When you're buying a vehicle from an individual, you only want to purchase it from the person whose name is clearly printed on the front of that title, like you see right here. When you ask a person if the title's in their name and they say they bought it from their brother-in-law and the brother-in-law signed the back and you can just come on over there and buy it from them, stay away from that transaction. It is illegal in every state, including Alabama. And why would you ever support the operations of someone that doesn't get a legal dealer's license like what you're obtaining and they're operating illegally? So when you have established that the person who's selling that vehicle's name is actually on the front of the title and they are the true owner with the true selling rights, let's go ahead and make the buy. We're going to go buy this vehicle, and what we're going to do on the back of that title is what's called the first assignment of ownership. It is very important that you know how to do this correctly because, like I said, many transactions that you're involved with, it will only be you and possibly the customer. So the customer is going to expect you to basically know how to complete a title, and they're going to look for you for your expertise to complete that deal. And I want to magnify this as well. So right here, you can see it a little bit clearer. So what we're going to do, we're going to enter the date of the transaction, and then the area where you're going to be buying the vehicle, and then there's also an area for the buyer's information and the seller's information as well. So you're always going to want to put your name and your dealership name, and always record the exact mileage, and then you're going to sign and print your name over to the right, and then you'll have the customer sign and print their name as well. Make sure you complete all the information correctly whenever you're buying or selling a vehicle. Now you bought that vehicle, you're going to bring a vehicle back to your lot and resell it with the same title by doing what's called a reassignment. You're going to be able to complete the subsequent boxes like you see here. When you are a licensed Alabama motor vehicle dealer, you are able to do the reassignment of ownership. But you must have a dealer's license in order to do this. In order to buy a vehicle and then resell it on the same title, you're going to have to do this. You don't have to mail this title in and get a new title. You're going to be able to use the same title that you bought the vehicle from and turn it around on the same title and flip it for a profit, which is called a dealer reassignment. I want to show you how to do this correctly. Remember, we just purchased the vehicle at the top by doing the first assignment. Now we brought the vehicle back to our lot. And let's say, for example, Jack McGregor walks onto the lot and wants to buy the vehicle at your markup. Well, that's great. But now we're going to reassign ownership. And now you can see Jack McGregor becomes the buyer. So we're going to enter Jack McGregor as the buyer. Since we're selling it to Jack McGregor, we need to enter our dealer number where it says license number. And remember, you must have a dealer's license in order to reassign titles. So enter your dealer license number right there. Then after the odometer reading, the date of the sale, and then you're going to have Jack McGregor sign it and print his name, and then you're going to sign it and print your name as well. And this is exactly how you're going to make money with your new business. Any motor vehicle is very much like a stock. So what you're going to do, you're going to buy that vehicle as low as you can, and you're going to sell that vehicle as high as you can. And I'm often asked how much we should mark this up to. Can we mark it up to Blue Book value or JD Power NADA or whatever? I'm a strong believer that you should mark those vehicles up above Blue Book or above JD Power or NADA, because you're going to be amazed at all the customers out there that will actually come in and write you a check for your full asking price without even trying to negotiate. And there's also a lot of customers that will come in and try and negotiate your price down $200 or $300. I'm a big believer that you should mark your vehicles up as high as possible and be willing to negotiate them. But when sometimes there are going to be times where you're going to get your asking price, and your profits sometimes are going to be much higher than Blue Book value or NADA value. There really is no limit on the markup of the vehicle. Really, like I always like to say, the only limit on the markup is what that customer is willing to pay you on the lot. So there is no limit on the markup. And I'm a big believer that this is truly the world's best business because there's no limit on the markup. And I'm also a believer that you are taking a financial risk to start this business. And I think that you should reap the financial rewards when this business is successful. As you see there are other reassignment boxes on the back of not only an Alabama title, but every state's title. As you can see here, there are multiple reassignments, which means there are multiple sales allowed on the back of a title. And you're going to realize here that Alabama's wholesale market has been strong for years and years, but it really exploded the last couple of years. And what I mean by that, many times you're going to find that a vehicle has been sold between multiple dealers before it goes to the retail customer on the lot. So there's a lot of different scenarios that could lead to all these dealer-to-dealer sales. Let's say, for example, at the top there, let's say Sarah Sanchez from Alabama Motors bought this vehicle initially from an individual off marketplace. Maybe Sarah didn't want to mess with it at all. She might have taken it straight over to the closest dealer auction over in Birmingham. And then maybe Jack McGregor with ABC Motors could have bought it at the Birmingham auction and realizes that the dealer auctions down in Mobile are going a lot higher. So a lot of times a dealer will buy a vehicle from one dealer auction and take it to another dealer auction the following week. Well, maybe down at the other auction, Sandy from Jackson Trucks bought the vehicle at the Mobile auction, and maybe she sold it to a dealer across the street. And so you can see there's a lot of times when a vehicle has been bought and sold between multiple dealers before it goes to the final customer. So once you have all of the reassignments full, then you're going to have a version of a title that looks just like this. And almost all states are going to look very similar to this. Now you have all the reassignments full. So a lot of times there's a scenario you could buy a vehicle, say for example, at a dealer auction, and all the reassignments are full. I want you to be aware of this form, which is called a Dealer Reassignment Form MVT 8-3. And you see this form right here on the screen. This form will allow you to take a vehicle that has a full title and it can be sold other times. So when would you use this form? I do believe it's going to be a very common scenario where you'll buy a vehicle at a dealer auction on the very last assignment. You'll take that vehicle back to your lot, and you might have a customer that sees you drive that in from the dealer auction, and that really excites customers when they see you driving a vehicle in from the dealer auction because they think they're obviously the first one that has the chance to buy it, and they might want to buy it on the spot. Well, if you bought that from the dealer auction on the very last assignment, you'd think you would not be able to sell it, but as long as you have these reassignment forms, then you will be able to take that full title and resell it again. You definitely want to have these on file. Now, let's go ahead and take a quick look at this because they're a little bit different than the actual title itself. You're going to complete it just like you did on the assignment, but you're also going to put the title number and the VIN number here, and you're going to put the person who's buying it and the person who's selling it along with the dates and the odometer readings. So remember, you're going to need to put the title number along with the VIN. Since this is not the physical title that I showed you just a moment ago, this is the reassignment form, so you definitely need to be aware of that information. Let's go ahead and talk about your MVT 8-3 guidelines, because there are some real strict guidelines that all dealers need to be aware of. Let's go ahead and talk about these guidelines. First of all, when all dealer assignments on the title have been completed, the dealer reassignment form MVT 8-3 must be used. It can only be used by an Alabama dealer. It cannot be used by a dealer that's licensed in another state, and that's the rule. Only Alabama dealers can use it when all the other title assignments are complete. You cannot use a reassignment form when there's still a couple spaces on the back of the original title. I want you to be aware, the Department of Revenue says if an out-of-state dealer has left blank parts on the title and initiated their own state's reassignment form, subsequent dealers may not use reassignments on the title. They're also going to need to use that reassignment form. So I want you to be aware, you cannot just use an MVT 8-3 to correct mistakes on a title as well. You would have to basically get the title corrected through MV Trip. So please do keep that in mind. I want to show you how these forms can be collected. So you can Google Alabama Dealer Reassignment Form that you see right here, MVT 8-3, and you're going to go to the revenue.alabama.gov website and easily be able to get those forms. I want to make sure and strongly encourage you to always keep copies of MV83 in your dealership so you'll be able to sell a vehicle when you do acquire a vehicle that has that full title. Next, I want you to be aware of a very, very important law, and I'm going to read it to you. Alabama law requires every motor vehicle sale to include a written document signed by the buyer and seller stating all the terms of the transactions, and this is known as the Alabama Motor Vehicle Contract Law. So what it means is that you have to have a bill of sale every time you buy a vehicle, and you'll need a bill of sale every single time that you're selling a vehicle. I want to repeat that very important information. You're going to need a bill of sale every time you're buying a vehicle, and you're going to need a bill of sale every time that you're selling a vehicle. That's Alabama's motor vehicle contract law, and I want to show you a sample bill of sale. If you need a bill of sale, I'm going to leave the links up there at the very top for you. You'll see a lot of links on the Learning Management login page up there at the top. So I will have that at the top of the dealer license training course if you need to use this, or when you're using software, and I'll talk about software programs later on in the course as well. That should be generated for you automatically. Let's go ahead and take a look at your bill of sale. You're going to need to enter the buyer's name and address. If you're the seller, then you're also going to enter the seller's name. And remember to enter your dealership name and your dealership number there as well. And then you'll need to enter the vehicle description, including the date of the sale, the make, model, year, title number, and the value if you did take a trade-in. By the way, if you did take a trade-in, you'll need to enter the trade-in information. If you did not, then you can go ahead and leave that trade-in information blank. Next, we're going to want to enter the vehicle pricing information. And I want to give you a quick overview of what's known as a trade-in allowance. When a person buys a vehicle from a licensed Alabama motor vehicle dealer and they trade another vehicle in on that vehicle, they only have to pay sales tax on the difference, which is referred to as the trade-in allowance. And it's really easy to compute this. By the way, no matter what, you're going to take the sales price, subtract the trade-in, and that's going to equal the net price, which is basically what the customer is going to pay sales tax based upon. So remember, a sales price minus the trade-in will equal the net price. If you did not take a trade-in, then your sales price and the net price will be exactly the same. And the link to the document that actually has the built-in math is there at the very top of the learning management system. But, I want to kind of give you a warning here, because I do predict that you're going to have some customers that are going to ask you to enter an incorrect sales price on the bill of sale that is actually lower than the true sales price. And this would allow them to pay a lower amount of sales tax, and that is illegal in all 50 states. In fact, I predict this is going to happen to you at one time or another. I predict that you're going to have a customer come into your dealership, they're going to buddy up with you, and they're going to say something like, hey, listen, we've agreed, I'm going to pay you $10,000 for the car, and I am going to pay you $10,000 for the car, but why don't you go ahead and write $7,000 on that bill of sale so I can save some money on my sales tax? Well, that is illegal, like I said, in all 50 states. So that's fraud. And not only would you lose your dealer's license, you could be charged with a misdemeanor or possibly even a felony. I personally had customers threaten to walk out of my dealership if I don't write an incorrect lower price on the bill of sale. And that's at the time that I put the pen down and walk away from the deal, okay? Always remember, you could have a customer asking you to do something that is illegal. Be ready to walk away from that deal no matter what. We've got to make sure all the pricing information is correct on all dealer docs. And you're also going to want to make sure that you have your signature and the seller's signatures as well. Next, this is what is called a motor vehicle dealer ad valorem tax exemption, okay? Now, what this form is, this form shows that you are actually buying this vehicle to resell and you're not required to pay sales tax on it. And once again, this is a form, this is motor vehicle dealer ad valorem tax exemption form that you're going to need to complete every time you're buying a vehicle to resell. And I've got a link to those on the Learning Management System homepage, so you'll be able to easily link to those documents. Next, we're going to cover some very important information. Alabama dealers are required to apply for the customer's title within 10 calendar days of the sale of the vehicle. I want to repeat that very important information. This is a state law. Alabama dealers are required to apply for the customer's title within 10 calendar days of the sale of the vehicle. For some reason, if you forget to apply for the customer's title within 10 calendar days of the sale, then the state will give you some friendly reminders called fines. So, you don't want those friendly reminders called fines. If you continue to fail to do this, then they're going to revoke your license. So I want you to be very aware that applying for the customer's title is part of the gig, and I want to show you how easy that is to do right now. We're going to apply for the customer's title using the Alabama title system, which is referred to as ALTS. The ALTS is a web-based system that permits designated agents of the Alabama Department of Revenue, such as you, a licensed motor vehicle dealer, to access a secure website and complete title applications online for customers that you've sold vehicles to. The title application can be submitted by the dealer, and before the application is submitted, you're going to print some supporting documents and then submit those to the Department of Revenue. And I'm going to show you how easy this is. Once again, I want to give you some real quick information regarding designated agents, and you're going to learn this in your designated agent training. You must always properly complete the title application. You must provide the owner with a signed copy of all paperwork. You're going to need to assemble your title application and all supporting documents. You're going to submit them through ATLS, and all records of VINs and all documents are going to need to be kept for 5 years. I want to repeat that. You're going to need to keep all records for a minimum of 5 years. So you're going to need a good printer because you're going to document everything that comes across your desk. So chronologically, I want you to be aware that, we bought this vehicle, sold it to the customer on the lot. You've completed the title and the bill of sale, and now you're going to log into the Alabama title system in order to order that customer's new title. Now, I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and boot that title system up while the customer is still there. That way you can ensure that all that information is submitted correctly. I want to repeat that. I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and boot your ALTS up right while the customer is there, so you can get all this information done while the customer's there before they leave. But you do have up to 10 calendar days, but I do recommend that you go ahead and do that before the customer does actually leave the lot. In the very next unit, I'm going to show you exactly how to order your titles through the Alabama title system.